Hello and welcome to Lunch with the Editor. Today we are really happy to present to our readers and viewers our year-end issue, which is the issue that we are bringing out before we go off for our annual break. This is called the God issue. There is strife all over the world, from Syria to Myanmar. From various parts of the world, we get to hear the stories, we get to see visuals, we get to hear voices of violence over religion. The latest was the most disturbing video from Rajsamand in Rajasthan, where a Muslim laborer was hacked to death and his body was put on fire by a person who was accusing him of all things love jihad. So these stories, these voices, these visuals from across the world prompted us to ask a very, very basic question. Is God harmful to human beings? We all thought that, God was this all-merciful, caring, loving Father, Son, Holy Ghost, formless, with form, a personal God, Father-like God, all-knowing, all-pursuing. But instead of preserving us, we now have a God which is the God of death. So we asked some of the greatest spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers, religious leaders, historians, sociologists to answer this question for us. Is God harmful to human being? And we have an extremely impressive list of contributors, starting from the Nobel laureate, the Dalai Lama, the spiritual and religious leader of Tibetan Buddhists across the world. He has written a beautiful piece for us. Then we have an interview with Mata Amritanandamayi, a very unlike religious person who comes from a fishing village on Kerala coast, and from coming from such humble background, such a backward village in Kerala, her influence spreads across education, media, entertainment, healthcare, and many other spheres of human activity. We have Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, another very, very influential spiritual teacher. He has written the Backpage Diary, which is a very, very important slot for us on the harmonic realm. So then we have the former Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari, an interview with Mr. Hamid Ansari. Then the brilliant writer of mythology, Devdutt Patnaik, has written a piece for us, and he has also illustrated his piece for us with some beautiful illustrations. Professor Jyotirmay Sharma, professor of philosophy from Hyderabad University. Then Shiv Vishwanathan, another very big name in the world of academia. Reverend Dr. Dwight, who is the General Secretary of the World Council of Churches. Mufti Abul Qasim Nomani, who is the Vice Chancellor of Deoband. Rabbi Asher Lopatin from the US. Professor Upinder Singh, Professor of History in Delhi University. A former Vice Chancellor of Guru Nanak University, J.S. Grewal, on the history of Sikh spiritualism. P.A. Krishnan on the violence in Dravidian land, ancient Dravidian land. M.J. Varsi on how skewed the liberal view is of the Muslim world. Rakshanda Jalil and Reverend Vinod Victor, who is a parish priest from Melbourne. He is writing about the history of strife in the name of religion. So Pranay, this is an absolutely impressive list of writers. What special did you find in this?
See, what I found, the fundamental question that we had asked is God the problem? In every society, God has played a part, depending on both individual and the society as a whole. It has mostly been a very important part. But now the question that we have raised, that most of the violence that we see today in the world, in different parts of the world, is being fought in the name of God or religion. So what is it for me then today? What does God represent? And this question, I think, has been answered by all these, the list of names that you just read out. I think they are brilliantly argued. You may agree, you may disagree, that's a separate thing. But it's a debate which is very live, and I think most readers would really enjoy it. They have a lot of time now, this week or the coming days that is coming. It's a festivity days which have begun, and I think they will really find something worth reading in this.
And what was the message that Hamid Ansari had to give in your interview with the former Vice President?
I think he's making 2 points. One, that religion or God is a very personal kind of a thing for people, how we interpret that. And the other, the politics of God. How various regimes in different parts, and the same regime that he has used, in the case, he's talking about how God, to get an alliance together, how they used God, how then to run against that particular their former allies at one time, and who turned against that particular country. I'm talking about the US in this case. How they also use religion. So religion has been used in different ways by strong people, by the oppressed and the oppressor, both. So how we see God depends on individuals. In that sense.
So do we really need God? God as something, as an idea which creates so much of competition. The very idea of God immediately brings in the idea of conversion. When one group of people, one group wants to sort of grab the souls of others for salvation. So it is in this context that across the country we have had strife, across the globe we have had strife. So what sort of people really need God? That is one of the questions that was posed to Mata Amritanandamayi. Are these very weak people who need God as a crutch? So in her opinion, only strong people realize God. But I still wonder, do strong people need God?
See, they need God because we have seen one of the most powerful nations in the world using God. So in one way or the other, they need God. We can argue. They have used. How they use it is a debate. It's an open question. But they need God. There are a number of people. But the other point I think I wanted to make, which you raise in your editorial, that God has become a commodity now. My God is better than your God, and this is what is creating that kind of a strife that we see. Competitiveness between God or religion. And for that, people are willing to go mild and do anything, especially all kind of violence is being perpetrated in His name. This is something which needs to be looked at, both leaders who are leading them in that path and also by individuals who are participating in that.
Interestingly, atheists have also strongly put across this point of God being a real source of strife. So we have atheistic voices, we have voices of great believers, great gurus of our world. So it's a grand mix. It's a very impressive list of contributors. So I hope and wish all of you would enjoy this special issue. And at the same time, before closing, I would also like to highlight a very important thing that has happened, particularly yesterday's RK Nagar bypoll results. It has sort of completely turned Tamil Nadu politics upside down.
Absolutely.
TTV Dinakaran was a complete outsider in the sense that there was no hope in hell for him to win, but he did win with such a huge margin, 40,000 votes. That's a humongous margin in an assembly bypoll, and particularly when you are the underdog. And then to see that DMK is pushed to the third position, and that DMK has lost its deposit there, and that BJP, the number of votes BJP polled is actually less than the number of votes that people have polled for Nota, that is none of the above. So it's a revelatory kind of bipolar results that came out yesterday. So that is also going to play in the minds of our political leaders. What do you say, Pranay?
Absolutely. In fact, in a way that if we look at it, what's happening in Tamil Nadu, we will have to go back a little and perhaps, what happened earlier in the week. That's the 2G, the verdict which came out. That set the ball rolling in that sense, because everybody has been talking, what does it mean politically, how do we see it? Because a very powerful political family, key members of them were indicted in that. And now with this kind of a verdict where they have come clean, how do we see in the coming days the politics of Tamil Nadu? And it's surely going to have impact in other parts of the country.
Absolutely. The acquittal in the 2G case did not have any impact on the voting pattern, in the sense that it suddenly showed that DMK is not even a contender. The primary contenders are actually the legatees of the AIDMK leadership, where there is a vacuum now after Jayalalitha's passing. So suddenly you see that the voters are trying to figure out whether to vote for TTV Dinakaran, that is the Shasikala family, or the OPS and the EPS factions which are ruling now. One is the Chief Minister and the other is the Deputy Chief Minister. So the real contest was between these two groups within the former, who were all part of the ADMK earlier. And suddenly DMK was not even in the contest.
Absolutely. And all this happens on the birth anniversary of MGR.
Yeah.
That's another interesting part here.
Yeah.
So now from here on, what do we expect? What do we see? That's a big question that everybody is asking, and we will.
So very interesting time. So I'll just read out some of the comments that have come in. Brahmanand Tiwari saying outstanding. Well, thank you so much. Prashanta Behra saying quite debatable. Yes, that is exactly our point. We need to debate the question whether God is harmful to human beings or not. Then we have Simran Sidhu saying God or natural power, the creator, is not harmful, but religion has always had political inclinations. So in India, as awareness level is quite low, it is very harmful. Yes, that is exactly what we all wanted to say, that as we see it, as it stands, as it is staring in our face, religion or God appears to be quite harmful. That's all for today. Thanks for joining.